I still kind of feel bad about myself for not going in System Going. Buddy Holly exposed a lot of people to rock and roll during his long but sad career. The 1950s teen hero solidified his place as a founder of the rock and roll genre by combining elements of rhythm and blues, rockabilly, and country music. He died tragically in 1959. However, the story of his mysterious wife, Maria Elena Santiago, is even more cloudy than his career, who is known for not being at the singer's funeral. Today we'll talk about Buddy and Maria Elena's relationship past and the sad reason she couldn't make it to the wedding. In 1959, 3 young stars died in a plane crash in Iowa. This is known as the day the music died. For more on this sad event, see America's Cameron Kramer. Buddy Holly's work and life. Before we get into the sad truth about why Buddy's wife didn't show up to his funeral, let's take a closer look at the man Buddy Holly was, and the things that led to his strange relationship with Maria Elena. Bud Holly was born on September 7, 1936, in Lubbock, Texas. His full name was Charles Hardin Holly. Buddy was born into an artistic family at the height of the Great Depression. He learned to sing with his family and play the violin, piano, and guitar. Buddy got in touch with his singing side at a young age through rhythm and blues and country music. Buddy met Bob Montgomery at Hutchinson Junior High School in 1949. They became friends because they both loved music, and together they formed the band Buddy and Bob. The story goes that Buddy's first contract had a usual typo that caused the spelling to change from Holly to Holly. Buddy didn't go through the trouble of changing the name. Instead, he just went with it. That's how Buddy Holly was born. Buddy and Bob used to play bluegrass music at talent shows and clubs in their area. Duets with Bob that sound good together. Buddy first became well known when he and his partner opened for Bill Haley and the Comets at a neighborhood show. Eddie Crandall was very interested in Buddy, and the growing star was offered a deal with Decca Records to work alone. Even though he was excited to start a new part of his work, it would be hard to learn how to do it without a creative partner. In the end, Buddy and Norman Petty worked together on a demo of That'll Be the Day. The tape was sent to Brunswick Records and later released as a single by Buddy's new band, the Crickets. Petty had a lot of contacts in the music business and thought Buddy was talented. It was a strange move for Decca's company Coral Records to sign Buddy Holly and the Crickets. Buddy had 2 record deals going at the same time, which made the record company even more sure of his fame. That was the day that topped the UK and US music charts in September 1957. Buddy was praised for his unique sound and the way he mixed instruments that didn't normally go together. Bud was a lead guitarist who had a big impact on many songs, like Not Fade Away and Peggy Sue. Back then, Boy Loves Girl songs were all the rage, and Buddy was up there with the best of them. But what made him unique was his ability to add complex words and harmonies to easy listening melodies that were already out there. Holly's unique singing style comes from a vocal hiccup method, which makes his music even more unique. The method and how it changes the song are shown at the beginning of Rave On. Buddy's work to bring people of different races together in rock music was even more amazing than the new music he made. One famous event happened at the Apollo Theater in 1957. Buddy Holly and the Crickets were the first white band to play there after being booked by mistake. The Apollo's booking agent wanted to book a black R&B band called the Crickets. They were known for making the music of Sammy Davis Jr. and Dinah Washington famous. But Buddy famously won over the mostly black crowd, even though his presence had historical consequences and made the crowd sad and confused. It was an important day in the long and troubled history of rock and roll. Buddy's career was now off and running. He was on a roll, especially after putting out more songs that got good reviews and sold well. Buddy Holly and the Crickets went on a month-long tour of the UK in 1958. Notably, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, who would later form the Beatles, would go to one of the shows and even say that the Crickets gave them the idea for their band name. Later, the Beatles would cover Words of Love, and later the Rolling Stones would cover Not Fade Away. The band The Hollies was even named after these songs. Buddy's personal style was also interesting to many people, along with the songs he liked. Buddy marketed himself as a more polished and in-control version of Elvis Presley. He also seemed younger and more creative than other country singers of the time. Stars like Elvis Costello, Marshall Crenshaw, and the Turtles, who were part of the New Wave movement, were the most important to young people during this time. Buddy married Maria Elena Santiago in secret in 1958 after making several appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show and becoming a well-known name on the charts. One of the many unusual things about the couple's relationship was that they chose to keep their marriage a secret. There are strong hints that Norman Petty planned the scheme to keep Buddy's status as a heartthrob. Petty didn't want to take Buddy off the market by telling everyone that he was already with someone else. So it's very likely that the long time they kept things secret led to future depression. By 1959, Buddy had left the Crickets and was going on a solo tour with artists such as Richie Valens and JP. The Big Bopper Richardson Jr. The Winter Dance Party Tour brought in a lot of fans, including Bobby Zimmerman, who would later become Bob Dylan. The Winter Dance Tour would be Buddy's last performance in rock and roll history. This is the real Buddy Holly. When you talk about Buddy Holly's life, you can't leave out some of his best moments as a rock star and as the 22-year-old kid who won over a generation. Buddy was already on the radio charts with songs from Buddy and Bob by the time he was 17. Bud and Bob opened for Elvis Presley at the Fair Park Coliseum in Lubbock on February 13, 1955. Buddy even played Elvis Martin guitar during the show. He then went on to open for the King twice more. In 1957 and 1958, Buddy, Holly, and the Crickets worked hard all day and night to make songs and put on shows. During those years, they went on the Ed Sullivan Show twice, and during the second act, they managed to annoy Sullivan. Sullivan had told the players not to play Oh Boy because he thought it would get the crowd excited and make them more likely to get rowdy. Still, the players played the song and it went well. Bud told them not to come on the show the next time Sullivan's team asked them to. Now that Buddy Holly and the Crickets were so well known, they didn't need to be on a famous variety show. Buddy and the Crickets only had one #1 hit in 1957 with That'll Be the Day, but the musician was still very popular. In the UK, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and George Harrison would go to Buddy's show. This was the start of the Beatles. They loved Buddy Holly so much that when they were trying to name their band, they thought of Crickets and went with that idea. After going through a lot of different ideas and spellings, they decided on the punny spelling of Beatles as a clear nod to the Crickets. Maria Elena is in charge of most of Buddy's music business, but she doesn't actually own the songs. There are rights to those things owned by Paul McCartney. Maria Elena now calls him by his first name after Buddy's sad ending. We need to learn more about Maria Elena's life in order to figure out the sad and strange reason she wasn't at Buddy Holly's funeral, how Maria Elena and Buddy Holly's unusual relationship began. The year she was born was 1932 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. When she was 26, she was working as a receptionist at Piers Southern Music's offices in New York. That's when she met Buddy Holly, who was 22 years old at the time. Although Buddy had just returned from a month-long tour in England that made him a star in rock and roll music, Maria Elena says she didn't know Buddy was famous when they met for the first time. As Maria Elena put it, it was love at first sight. Buddy said something about her Puerto Rican accent, and she told him about his Texas twang. When he first asked Maria Elena to go on a lunch date, she said no because it was against the rules for workers to date clients. In what seems to be a recurring trend in Buddy's life, he acted on the spur of the moment, and they ended up at lunch. Buddy is said to have gotten up from the table after sitting down and came back a short time later with a red rose from Maria Elena. She remembers thinking about how her aunt felt about artists. All of them are crazy. But Maria Elena leaned into the ridiculousness because she was clearly taken with Buddy's charm and energy. Following just 5 hours, Buddy asked Maria Elena to marry him. She thought he was kidding at first. After all, they had only been friends for 5 hours. She made a joke by asking, "Do you want to get married now or later after dinner, maybe?" Buddy just told him, "No, I'm serious about it." "Would you like to get married?" After 2 months, Maria Elena Santiago changed her name to Maria Elena Holly in a small celebration in Buddy's hometown of Lubbock, but the world wouldn't find out about their marriage until the sad end of their love story. Buddy and Maria Elena Holly moved into an apartment in Greenwich Village, New York. This is a busy area full of creative people and people who want to be artists. Maria Elena was swept up in Buddy's crazy life even though she had only met him earlier that summer. According to Maria Elena, the fact that her situation was new was hard. Buddy was always driven, and he was always thinking about new projects and job moves. He planned to set up offices, a recording studio, and a publishing business in New York. He was already thinking about how to help other artists at that point. His work as a producer for singers like Lou Giordano and Waylon Jennings was already good, but he wasn't happy. He thought about writing music for films and buying properties. He even told Maria Elena that he might want to try performing. At this point in his work, Maria Elena said he was a laid-back person, but when it came to music, he was very driven. Tour for a winter dance party. Buddy Holly started the Winter Dance Party Tour in January 1959. Among the musicians who joined him were Waylon Jennings, Tommy Allsop, Carl Bunch, Richie Valens, JP, Dion and the Belmonts, Frankie Sardo, and the Big Bopper Richardson and his band. The tour would go on for 24 days and cover the whole Midwest. It would become the most famous rock concerts ever. The show was a disaster in terms of planning. When the dates were set, they were hundreds of miles apart, forcing the artists to travel during the worst winter the area had seen in decades. Even worse, The players had to take the bus to get to work. The bus wasn't warm and was crowded. On February 1st, Carl Bunch, who had been Holly's drummer, left with frostbitten feet. There was a rebellious air to the trip, maybe because Bunch had left or because it was so cold. They had 2 shows planned for that day at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. When they got there, they were in a bad mood. Buddy told Alsop and Jennings that he would book a plane from Mason City, Iowa to Fargo, North Dakota for them after the show. The plane would arrive before the rest of the band. Buddy planned to do some laundry with this extra time. There were plans made with the Mason City-based Dwyer Flying Service to fly to an airport in Fargo, which had the closest runway to Moorhead and was where Buddy's next show was planned. Roger Peterson, a local pilot who was 21 years old, was given the job of flying the plane. There were short weather warnings up because the weather was very bad, but it was thought that any pilot who knew how to use instruments could easily handle the weather. But Peterson didn't have a license to fly with instruments, and he had just failed a part of his test. Buddy called Maria Elena after the show in Clear Lake was over. Then Carol Anderson, who was in charge of Surf Ballroom, drove Holly Valens and Richardson to the Mason City Municipal Airport. At that point, light snow fell and the sky became cloudy. The wind was going 20 to 30 miles per hour. Buddy's sad death buddy, Jennings, and Alsop were supposed to be on board at first. It was getting old for the Big Bopper to move around on the crowded buses, so Jennings gave him his place. Alsop and Valens flipped a coin, and the winner got a seat on a plane. The winner was Wallens, who got to fly. Bud Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens got on a 3-seater Beechcraft 35 Bonanza plane on February 3rd, 1959, and took off. Dwyer had already gone back to the airport and seen a shaky flight. After a few minutes, Dwyer called Peterson on the radio to see if everything was okay, but he didn't answer. He called the Fargo airport to find out when the plane was supposed to land, but no plane had come. Dwyer took off in a different plane to follow the planned path of the lost plane. Not until after sunrise did he find the horrified bodies of all 4 passengers spread all over the ground after a terrible plane crash. Deputy Bill McGill got to the scene of the accident, which was in a farm not far from Mason City Municipal Airport. According to the investigation, the plane hit the ground at a speed of about 170 miles per hour. The plane first hit the ground with its right wing, which sent the gear spinning across the field. Buddy and Valens were found close to the wreckage. Richardson's body was found in the field of a nearby farmer. The wreckage had Peterson's body stuck in it. It's scary that Carol Anderson, who managed the setting and drove the party to Mason City Municipal Airport, was in charge of finding the victims. Ralph Smiley, the county coroner, reported that all 4 victims died right away. The 3 musicians died from head injuries, and the pilot died from brain damage. The Civil Aeronautics Board also started an official probe. The pilot had been with Dwyer for a year. Nevertheless, he had been flying for more than 4 years. In fact, he had logged 128 of his 711 total flight hours while flying Bonanzas. Even though Peterson had 52 hours of training in instrument flying, he had only passed the written part of his test. The accident happened because Peterson wasn't trained in instrument flying and could only fly when there was clear visibility, according to the Civil Aeronautics Board. The pilot's bad choice to start the flight was to blame. Further problems developed because Peterson was given a weather briefing that was said to be incredibly inadequate. In the warning, it wasn't mentioned that visibility was low and that a skilled pilot was needed. Not being at the funeral with Maria Elena Santiago, the couple had only been married for 6 months at the time of Buddy's death, but no one knew that. On top of that, Maria Elena was expecting their first child. A lot of people know that she saw the news about the accident at the same time as everyone else. One of Buddy's rising stars, Lou Giordano, for whom he worked as a director, called Maria Elena first thing in the morning. She was still in bed and didn't understand why Giordano told her not to watch the news. Of course, she did the wrong thing, and saw that news stories about Buddy's death were all over the place. Maria Elena went into shock, and because of problems, she had a miscarriage less than a week later. Bud Holly's funeral took place at the Tabernacle Baptist Church in Lubbock on February 7th, 1959. As a pallbearer, Bob Montgomery was one of the people who came. Maria Elena Holly made a bad name for herself by not going to Buddy's funeral, causing a lot of people to wonder about her character and goals. Many people said that Maria Elena was up to no good or didn't care about Buddy, but neither of those things is true. What was Maria Elena's reason for not going to Buddy Holly's funeral? After Buddy's death and his widow's absence, Maria Elena kept quiet and to herself for a few years. But she did share her thoughts on the tragedy with the world. I kind of blame myself. I didn't feel good when he left. Buddy had a trip planned when I asked him to stay with me because I was 2 weeks pregnant. Being away from him was the only time I felt guilty, because I know that Buddy would not have been on that plane if I had gone with him. In addition to being completely devastated, Maria Elena's doctor told her that going to the funeral would put her health at even greater risk, She also said that she couldn't stand to see his body in the coffin. Maria Elena was very sad, and she wanted to remember Buddy for the person he was while he was still living. After 4 years, Maria Elena married again to Joe Diaz, who was also Puerto Rican. They had 3 children together, but got a divorce in 2010. In talks with Maria Elena, she says that she couldn't listen to his music after he died. She thought the music killed him, and Diaz had to really persuade her to get back in touch with Buddy's memory. It became very important to her to keep Buddy's skill alive. Over the next 22 years, she would spend all of her time fighting against unfair record companies. She has a no-nonsense attitude that worked well with business leaders, but turned off most people. In particular, it looked like Maria Elena annoyed a lot of people in Lubbock. She said in an interview that she is often called the Spanish Yoko Ono, and that people charge her of making money off of the name of her late husband. The fact that they were different races hit the pair early on. Buddy came from Lubbock, Texas, and he once told Maria Elena that the town was a little behind the times. Since Maria Elena is Puerto Rican but acts and looks like a Spanish woman, she probably felt left out by the people in Lubbock because of the racism and sexism that was common at the time. In the years after Buddy's death, Maria Elena would say that Lubbock was like Memphis and criticized the city for not honoring Buddy Holly like Memphis did for Elvis Presley. While Lubbock was still against Buddy Holly, they changed their minds in 1999 and built what is now called the Buddy Holly Center. That's as far as the city would go with helping Maria Elena, who is still sad about her late husband and plays his music by herself. As of now, Maria Elena has not been to Buddy Holly's grave. The day music stopped. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and JP. The death of the Big Bopper, Richardson Jr., would mark a historic day in rock and roll. In his 1971 song American Pie, Don McLean called it the day the music died. The sudden and tragic deaths of the artists and their pilot became an important event in the history of rock music. The term "the day the music died," which is mostly linked to McLean's hit song, refers to the sudden end of the early days of rock music, which many fans and regular Americans miss. Richie Valens was only 17 years old when his plane crashed, ending his life. Valens is known for making Chicano rock music and Mexican-American culture more famous in the late 1950s. La Bamba, his biggest hit in 1958, was a change made to a Mexican folk song. His impact went beyond racial and cultural lines, similar to Buddy's ability to bring people together through music. The Big Bopper was born John Paul Paul. Richardson Jr. died when he was 28 years old. In 1955, he joined the U.S. Army and died. He had 2 children. Popular rockabilly songs like Big Bopper's Wedding and Chantilly Lace were made by the radio DJ. Because he was older than Buddy and Vallen, his songs had a flirty, confident tone. The Big Bopper was a unique and interesting artist. McLean didn't put out American Pie until more than 10 years had passed since the accident. People would say that the song is a sign of a loss of innocence for everyone. The song makes references to Bob Dylan, Elvis, and Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles. It does this by combining the names of Buddy's peers with those whose careers wouldn't have happened without him. At the end of the song, McLean tells the listener to remember everything that happened before. This adds to the nostalgic and heartbreakingly catchy undertones of the words. The song often makes references to the 1950s, which are remembered as a peaceful or less divisive time in American history. History, on the other hand, shows that the 1950s were anything but pure outside of the mainstream. Buddy spoke for a new group of Americans who want to make things better. Buddy's ability to bring people together, as seen at the Apollo in 1957, hinted at a successful career for the rising star and the political and social effects of his platform. Teenagers were against their parents, the government, and the media in the 1950s, especially when rock music came out. Rock music took a big departure from the filler bebop of the 1940s and earlier. It openly celebrated themes of love, sex, and rebellion, and most importantly, it started to change people's ideas about African Americans, bringing together black and white teens across the country while separating these listeners from the rest of the population. Joe Don McLean looked up to Buddy Holly. I would imagine to his music and then mourn his death. My love for Buddy Holly was there from the start and never changed. Don McLean was only 13 years old when he learned that Buddy Holly had died. McLean remembers being a teen when Buddy Holly was alive in the first line of American Pie. He talks about how Buddy inspired him and started a new wave of music and how his heart broke the day he died. He keeps complaining that Buddy made him want to become a singer, and he wonders if he cried when he learned that Buddy's wife of 5 months, Maria Elena, would be leaving him. Of course. Everyone now knows that Maria Elena found out about Buddy's death at the same time that McLean did, and that the news of the tragedy caused her to lose the baby. Because of this unfortunate chain of events. A policy that says partners of deceased people must be told of their partner's death before the media can report on it was not enforced. Maria Elena talked about the song and its message in a public interview in 2009. She said she liked the song, but she doesn't agree with what it's about. She said, "The music is still going strong, even though Buddy isn't here. It's still alive and well. There was a plane crash in February 1959, and the song's chorus says goodbye to the American dream. It seems to be a metaphor for the day the music died, the day American apple pie and a Chevrolet died." Holly Valens, Richardson, and Peterson were not the only ones killed in the terrible event. The day the music stopped pretty much ended what would have been a long and successful career for each boy. It made people in America feel bad, ask themselves questions, and remember the boys. The history. Buddy Holly died 65 years ago in 2024. The Surf Hall has a shrine for the day that music died. This is where Buddy Valens and Richardson played their last show before they died. Even though the place where Buddy's last show was sad, because it was where he died, his memory goes on there as Surf Ballroom continues to honor his legacy. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum in Cleveland, Ohio named the surf a rock and roll icon and a style from the 1950s. Has been carefully kept alive. The surf has become a popular place for Buddy Holly fans to visit, but many other singers have also been there. One example is a proudly shining scribbled line from McLean's American Pie that hangs on the wall of the dressing room. The museum is right next to the ballroom and has history records and information about the victims and what happened on February 3rd. Valens' handwritten lyrics to La Bamba, Richardson's briefcase, and most spooky the phone booth where Buddy Holly and Richie Valens made their last calls after the show are among the memorabilia. But the plaque at the crash site wasn't put up until 1988 by a fan who wasn't connected with the group. Ken Pocket made a memorial out of stainless steel that looks like a guitar and 3 tracks. He made a monument for the pilot in 2009. Aside from that, the crash spot hasn't changed much. In the middle of a huge Iowa field, it's a lonely spot. An entry point from the closest farm road is marked with Buddy's famous glasses that are too big for the person wearing them. From there, it's a long walk to the site of the tragedy, but the worn-down road shows that many fans go there often to pay their respects. Some of the most common things that people have left at the spot are glasses, plastic flowers, spare change, Marty's Grow beads, and a rusty Iowa license plate from 1959. When more people found out that Buddy hired a plane because he wanted some free time to do some laundry, a lot of socks and pants might be left at the memorial. Visitor reports say that fragile offerings and a few pieces of graffiti are left behind, which shows that the site is well taken care of and kept. Recent news says that Genesis Publications is working on a book called Words of Love with Maria Elena. The goal of the book is to record Buddy Holly's legacy and cultural effect. Genesis also works with the Buddy Holly Educational Foundation, whose goal is to carry out Buddy and Maria Elena's wishes that new generations of people from all walks of life and income levels can get musical education, resources, and chances. Genesis Publications said that many musicians have come forward to thank Buddy for helping them with their jobs while they were researching and gathering information for Words of Love. Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, Dave Grohl, Van Morrison, and Dolly Parton are some of these singers. Bruce Springsteen even says that he listens to Buddy's music every night before he goes to sleep to keep himself honest. Some of their main sources of motivation are catchy melodies and clever songwriting. This proves that many well-known songs and artists would not exist without Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly showed that rock and roll had a bright future ahead of it. Buddy died unexpectedly when he was only 22 years old. His death brought up ideas of time passing, losing youth, and teenage excitement. All of these things add to the societal importance of his fame and the universal grief that has been felt since his death. Thanks for seeing. Check out one of the other videos on your screen while you're still here. Don't miss it.